Hey, everybody, it's Dave here, Darren over there. Ty Chandler versus Alexander Mattison. Who will be the starter? That is the question. It's not quite Shakespearean, but it'll be the first theme we tackle today. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Two Old Bloggers with Darren and Dave. Today, we're going to delve into some critical discussions about our beloved Minnesota Vikings. We're going to start by addressing the ongoing debate of Ty Chandler and Alexander Mattison, exploring their performances and the potential implications for our running back position. We will then shine a spotlight on two unsung heroes in the Vikings lineup so far this season. We appreciate the efforts of Brandon Powell and DJ Wonnum, Mr. Cleanup Man, who's getting a little bit beyond that nickname. Both have significantly contributed to the team's success. And believe it or not, I've only had half a dram. I know it seems unbelievable, but that is the case. And finally, we're going to get into what you all came for, the game preview between your Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about strategies and potential challenges and what we can expect from this matchup. Part 2. We'll talk, so sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage like I already have, and let's get down for some serious Vikings talk on Two Old Bloggers. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. Hey everybody, Dave and Darren here. We want to welcome you to the show, and I see there's quite a few out there. We have Davey Chains, Raymond, Josue, glad for you to join us. My Worthless Opinion, the doctor's in the house. Hey there, doctor. Travis is here. We also have, who else is here, showed up? Justin, my good friend Justin, who does podcasts for us, and our post-game show. Right, Justin? And we're glad to have you. And there's little JJ Vikings, the man, the myth, the legend, the young up-and-comer who will take this business by storm. Probably within the next 10 years or so. I expect great things out of you, young man. Great things. And you're on the way to do it. All right. Let's get this started, as I said before. First off, Darren, how are things in the Great White North?
No complaints, Dave. How are things in Austin, Texas for you?
They're pretty good. I've been busy. I took most of yesterday, got up probably 80% of the Christmas decorations after a wonderful Thanksgiving. I just stuffed myself. Oh, God, it was wonderful. Turned out perfect.
Yeah.
One of the best ones I've ever fixed, even though it was relatively small. Got one of those butterball, they call it a roast, but it's just a mash of different pieces of meat. Shoved in a roast bag and then roasted that. It was perfect for two of us, and it turned out great. So, I
Happy
look and
Thanksgiving.
sound drunk. That's interesting, JJ. I have not drank that much. I've literally drank half an ounce, if that. And so, look drunk. I may always look like this. This is the way I normally look. Is it not?
You look sober as a judge to me, Dave. I don't know.
But you've known me for way too long. Hey, Yogi. Hey, Fanny, Viking. Whoa, I'll let you go with that. I live in Texas. There, Fanny. Wasn't born here. but I do live here now. Love it. Outside of Austin. Great place. Fantastic. All right, now let's get to theme 1. More Chandler or not?
Yes, Dave. To use Ty Chandler more than Alexander Mattison, or not to use Ty Chandler more than Alexander Mattison? That is the question, or at least one of the questions, as the Vikings make this playoff push. No secret to anybody who follows the Vikings. Running game has been pretty poor almost all year, and Alexander Mattison, ineffectiveness a lot of times as the number one running back has been one of the, the culprits, one of the reasons why that's been the case. I think there's other reasons too, but that's certainly one of them. So if you've watched this show regularly, you know, folks, that Dave and I have spoken many times since the season started. We've been waiting, like begging Kevin O'Connell to find anybody, some warm body, to at least split the carries with Alexander Mattison or hand over the starting running back job to somebody else other than Alexander Mattison to maybe try to give this running game a spark, jump-started, whatever you want to call it. Even at the beginning of the season, Dave, I think we talked about it. At that point, Ty Chandler was your number 2 guy behind Alexander Mattison. That's how it shook out. And we were kind of hoping, well, maybe it'll be 70-30, 70% of the carries, touches will go to Alexander Mattison, 30% will go to Ty Chandler, and then we'll see how it goes from there. Well, the first 2-3 games, it was about 95% Alexander Mattison and about 5% Ty Chandler. So that didn't work out. Running game was still shit. And then the Vikings made the trade for Cam Akers. So then we're like, when Cam Akers, our hope was when Cam Akers starts to learn the offense better, maybe he'll take over for Alexander Mattison and be the number 1 guy, and Mattison will get dropped to number 2. Well, that didn't happen either because Akers didn't get as many opportunities as we would have liked, I think, Dave. When he did get them.
Bro. It looks like Darren's internet just took a dump. Oh, that happens. He'll come back in. Not to worry. He was talking about how when Akers did take him, we did see some nice things. And Akers was working his way to become the starting running back, or at least get more and more time doing it. And then, of course, Akers, you heard up pop as the Achilles tendon went kablooey. And no more Akers. Back again comes Ty Chandler. Yep. Oh, no, Yogi. I know. It's he got hit with a solar flare or something, but his internet just took a dump, and he is frozen solid. And I guess that's what happens when you live above the Arctic Circle. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But as you can see, he just disappeared, which tells me he's going to be back here shortly. Okay. First off, I'd like to acknowledge everybody that's still here while we wait on him. Yes, Davey, the Wi-Fi went down on the dew line again. And for those that you don't know, the dew line was a radar set up across the northern Canada to protect against the Russians coming across and starting World War III during the Cold War. Yes, perfect time to sip a shot. I agree. Mm-hmm. Solid like a rock. There you go, Darren.
The perils of having the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we just figured,
and then I disappear.
And we figured it was a solar flare or something up in Canada. Maybe a satellite crashed, or
back, Aaron, back, whether you like it or not. I'm back.
But we're talking about Akers. We got Akers. Akers played well, getting more and more time, and then
more and more time. Then the Achilles happened, so he's out of the question. Then it's back to Chandler as the number 2 guy, and so now in the 2 games where Chandler has, since we lost Akers, and Chandler's been the number 2 guy and has gotten much more touches, snaps than he did early in the season, the returns I think have been looking, pretty good against the Saints and then against against the Donkeys. He's had 15 carries for 115 yards, which is pretty damn good. And then didn't have any catches against the Saints, but he had 4 catches for 37 yards against the Broncos and some pretty key catches there as well. So, that looks pretty good. And then, so the question becomes, okay, is now the time to give Ty Chandler the number one shot at the job compared to Alexander Mattison, who is, according to PFF, is the 54th running back that they've got rated out of 60 running backs that they have ranked this year, and that's probably based on the amount of snaps that they have as well, but or carries that they have. But anyway, you slice it, not very good ranking. So that is the question: is now the time that Chandler is going to take over the number one role? Is now a good time to do it? Jumpstart that rushing game, and I think Dave, that the problem with that is that I think it looks good. You got to keep in mind that, but maybe that would be the case. Except last game against the Broncos, Alexander Mattison probably had his best rushing game of the year. So if things had gone different against Denver with the poor rushing defense that they have, if Mattison had looked really bad but Chandler had looked good, I think that the Vikings coaching staff might react and take a different tack than what we might see Monday night against the Bears. But the fact is, Mattison played pretty well too. Now people are going to say, well, he had that bad fumble in the third quarter, and it was bad. But keep in mind that Chandler also was responsible for one of the 3 turnovers we had that really hurt us, in that he whiffed on a pass block, didn't get a good pass block on a Broncos defender who came in, hit Josh Dobbs' arm, which led to a flutter ball, which led to an interception deep in our territory. And so that, Chandler wasn't directly responsible for the turnover. He didn't commit it himself, but his poor pass blocking led to that situation and that turnover. So really, when you look at turnovers, Mattison and Chandler were even Steven there, one-on-one, right? So that's an issue. And I think that play kind of illustrates maybe why Ty Chandler may not get the number one running back role, at least initially, is the pass blocking. Because if you look at PFF's grades on pass blocking for Chandler is a very, very poor 26.9 grade. Over a small sample size, admittedly, but that's not that great. Whereas Mattison has got a 62.3 grade throughout the whole year. That's average, but much better than what Chandler has at this point. And it's not just PFF who thinks that Chandler's got a ways to go in pass blocking. I was listening to, mention it last week, the O-Line Committee podcast, video cast with Phil Mackey and former Vikings offensive lineman Jeremiah Searles and Alex Boone. Again, if you don't listen to this, you should, because it's really a great podcast, video cast. But Mackey brought up that Boone and Searles have been saying since training camp that Chandler needs to get much better at his pass blocking. And that's a reason why he hasn't had a larger role thus far as a Viking in that Vikings offense. And you hear it lots of times, Dave, where if coaches can't trust you to pass block, they're not going to have you in the game in critical situations, in key third down situations where you got to pass the ball. And so that really, I think, is maybe what's holding Ty Chandler back right now in a chance to vault over Alexander Mattison as the number one guy. I think when you take away the pass blocking, you look at Chandler and how he's played, Dave, in the 2 games where we've seen more and more of him, not just in preseason, but against, starters in the NFL. You see the things that you like. The 4.38 40 time that he showed in the combine, that's been on display. He can outrun guys who have angles on him. That's something Alexander Mattison cannot do. He can take something and that, a run that looks like it's going nowhere, bounce it to the outside, bounce it to the edge, outrun defenders and get to the edge and get positive yards. So he turns something into nothing. That is something Alexander Mattison usually cannot do. And I found that he's, when I see him running, Dave, he's patient. He allows his blocks to develop. He follows his blocks, and he's good that way. And I found that he's also been, even though he's only listed a little bit over 200 pounds, that he's been a tougher runner on the inside runs than I thought. So there's a lot of good things going for him. But again, if you can't pass block and you're going to hurt the team that way, it's hard for, unless you're Adrian Peterson, all-world Hall of Famer.
Right.
You're probably not, you're going to have a hard time being the regular guy if you can't pass block well.
And that really was a complaint about Adrian, and it got to the point where sometimes they took him out on third downs because of it.
Yeah, that is right. So we know Kevin O'Connell is very patient on the offensive side of things. He stuck with Ed Ingram through thick and thin the past 2 years, and he's actually being proven right for doing that right now. Stuck with KJ Osborne last year when he was kind of invisible for a while and then turned it on at the end. And he's stuck with Alexander Mattison so far and has been continued to say, hey, this guy, I see good things from him. He's an important guy in our offense. He can do all the things well that we need him to do, even if our Viking fans don't feel that way. But I think right now, I don't see a change happening with the running back situation. I think Mattison is going to be your number one guy Monday night against Chicago. And unless something terrible happens, like he fumbles 3 times, can't get, go rushes for minus 10 yards and O'Connell finally is fed up, I think really that's going to continue through this playoff push. And maybe the best we can really hope is what we've seen the past 2 games where Mattison is your number one guy, but he's getting between 18 to 20 touches and Chandler's getting between 10 and 15. And, maybe that's okay. You got the thunder and lightning kind of aspect going, and it might work. But, I'd like to see Chandler get a bigger bite in the snap count and the touches. But I don't see that happening based on what I've seen all year from how O'Connell's handled it. Unless, again, the only way that maybe I could really see it changing is that Mattison gets hurt and he's out for a long time. And I'm not really keen on that because if Mattison is out, I don't like seeing players get hurt and out for a long time because that's how they make their money. That's their career. I don't want to see that happening. But also, if Madison's out, then we get really, really thin at running back, Dave. Then you're down to Ty Chandler and who else? Like Kenny Nwangwu's never been given the ball on a consistent basis in 3 years in the NFL. And then you got Myles Gaskin who has, but or Dwayne McBride. So that is how I see the running back situation going right now. And Madison's still going to be your number one guy, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And I'm seeing in the remarks, how many fumbles does Ty have? He does, I don't know how many fumbles. I think it's 0. But he's caused some turnovers as we discussed before. Yes, Alexander Mattison has put the rock on the ground, and that's inexcusable. It's something if you're carrying the ball and you get the helmet of the opponent comes in and hits it and it goes out and you can't hold on it. That's okay, understandable. But when you just blip, 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 drop it, that's not. And hopefully, to me, that earns Chandler some more time. Chandler has his issues. By far, Chandler's the one that can play special teams. You don't want to lose him on special teams. He plays special teams exceedingly well. I want that to continue. But I think he's more explosive when he runs with the ball. The problem is,
without a doubt,
both of them do not run the ball or do not read their blocks, whether it be in gap or in zone running, the way we would want them to optimize it, to get to see the hole, right? Or to know this is the time I need to cut back or cut in, bounce out, do whatever the read is for the running back. People think running back's a relatively easy position. Maybe back in the day it sort of was. You'd turn it off, hand off. You'd tell the guy ahead of time we're heading for the 3 hole. Or we're going off outside of the 7, which would be outside right tackle. And you'd go that way, right? And you'd hand the ball off and you'd aim the running back that way and you'd go run, right? And that was his job. Well, football, and especially at this level, is a heck of a lot more complicated than that. Even running backs have reads. They're watching as to they know the play call, they know the notional hole they're supposed to go to. Well, what happens if that hole is closed up? What are they supposed to do? Then they're looking at different things to see which direction am I going to bounce left, bounce right? How am I going to do this? Am I going to chop my feet and wait for something? Am I going to be patient in my running style? There's all sorts of things that go with that. Then you throw in a zone where all the linemen are moving and they're blocking an area out in front of them. You've got to be able to know the decision and by what you see as to where you need to plant your foot and go. It's that thought process up here that makes somebody like Ty Chandler, who can be explosive, into a very, very good running back. I say he's not there yet. That's why you see more of some plays he's, gets good yardage, and others he's in the -1 route, deal, just like Alexander Mattison is. Madison's a different style of running back. Alexander Mattison, in my opinion, has lost his top gear. But it's there. If I had my dream wish, we'd upgrade at running back. Put it that way. And that's not going to happen this season. So,
No.
But we need to look to that in the future. And Cook in his prime is a prime example. Cook was great. Cook's washed now. And all you had to do was watch that Jets game this weekend, and you saw that again. But we're sort of playing with the best capabilities of both, and they're both meh running backs. That's what we have, folks. It's not going to get any better by the end of the season. I want Chandler's explosiveness because he can get explosive plays, and explosive plays could be key to winning ball games, without a doubt. But you also want positive plays. And Madison's had a lot of those, even though they're 3-4 yards. They're positive. They open up the playbook. So it's meh, 50-50, one or the other. I'm hoping I see too much what I think is O'Connell saying, all right, you got this series. Mattison, you got this series. Chandler, you got this series. Mattison, Chandler, right? And it's like, no, let's fit the guys in. You can start out that way. Mattison gets the first series, or Chandler gets the first series, or whatever. Or you get into certain situations or certain parts of the field, get them in there. And if they're hot, keep them in there and start feeding them the ball. And see what happens. Bob, is McBride a bust? No, you can't say that yet. He was a 7th round draft pick? No. He's got to have time to develop. And even at a running back, you've got to let him develop. And there's a lot of things he's got to catch up on. Like I said, in all positions, the jump from college to NFL is huge. Now, it's bigger for some more positions than others. Running back's one, you think you could make that transition relatively quickly, but there's still time that you need to do that. And they've got to get through basically this season first before they even, I think, are going to attempt that. So you won't see McBride unless everybody fails, and that includes Kinney. Then you might see McBride called up, but that's it. I wouldn't anticipate him before that. Doctor says Akers was going to be the savior, and we'd probably see him as the RB1 if he hadn't blown his Achilles. And Doc, you're probably 100% correct.
But he did blow his Achilles, and he's not going to be playing. So it's Mattison and Chandler. That's who you're going to roll with, barring injuries to either one of them. And then, as I said, it gets really dicey after that.
Mm-hmm. But hey, if ifs were fishes, we'd have a full net full. Anyways, on to theme 2. And I know that's settled absolutely nothing.
Well, A lot of people agree in the comments that, Chandler really needs to work on his pass protection. And if he could do that and solidify that and improve that, then that may help him go from being the number 2 guy to the number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, if it hasn't happened now, you wonder if it's going to, why would it magically happen over the next 7 games or 6 games, I guess we're at.
Well, it depends who he gets with. That's what you hope your running back coach helps with. That drilling of what happens here. You see this, what do you do? The drilling, taking that extra time to walk it through the mental reps. You see this, what do you do? Then get on the field and let's practice some of that. That's coaches' jobs. You've got what you got so far this year. Now you have to identify, you want to play to everybody's strength, and then you want to identify the weaknesses that must be corrected. Pass blocking for a running back's one of those, and then you got to go out and fix them. That's what they get paid for. That's you do your best you can that you can do that. And if that level never is reached, you know what to look for in the draft. That's basically it.
And unfortunately, with the way Mattison has played so far, and the fact that McBride hasn't quite shown what we hoped he might, even though he's a 7th-round draft pick. He was a highly productive guy at UAB, but I didn't see anything in preseason that really wowed me. But what I'm getting at here is that, unfortunately, running back becomes now a need in the 2024 draft when you're hoping that you could focus on other things like quarterback,
defensive line,
cornerback, that sort of thing, maybe a guard, although that seems less of an issue right now than it was at the beginning of the year, considering the way Ed Ingram has progressed, and Dalton Reisner has played, pretty solidly since he's been in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings us theme to, like I said, and we're discussing Unsung Vikings.
Indeed we are, Dave, because every NFL teams are not made up from top to bottom studs, guys that are all pros and are making the Pro Bowl every year. In fact, most teams don't have very many of those guys. Their roster's made up of guys who are solid players, but not all pros, not superstars, not studs, and that's okay. With you need those guys. You need guys who can go in there relatively unnoticed, and when their number is called, they get the job done, and they do it well. Maybe not at an elite level, but they get it done. They make a positive contribution to the team. And so I wanted to highlight a couple of guys, one on offense, one on defense. I also was thinking about highlighting an unsung hero on special teams, but I couldn't really find one who's really stood out in that way. That was but if somebody in the comments has an idea, put her in there, because I'd be happy to discuss that as well. But, I felt on special teams, the guys that I expected to be good, Josh Metellus, Najee Thompson, those sorts of things, that they've played the way I expected them to play. Collinsworth was making all kinds of erroneous comments in that game about the Vikings. Like he was talking about, he was praising Mattison early in the game, when everybody who watches the Vikings knows that he has not been, the guy. Right. But anyway, and he didn't actually talk about the Vikings a whole hell of a lot. I found it was mostly focused on Russell Wilson. So Collinsworth didn't do his homework on the Vikings for that game. And not surprising, because it's a lot easier to talk about Russell Wilson, a guy you've watched and covered for over a decade, than it is to talk about a team that you haven't had. I don't think Collinsworth has done a Vikings game in 2 years, or maybe more longer. Anyway, he don't watch it very much.
It's once or twice a year maximum that he gets the game. So
anyway, back to the
hero
top
that we're starting with,
and so. Offensively, my unsung hero is, drum roll, please. We even have sound effects here on my nice gadget, but I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, Brandon Powell, wide receiver, kickoff returner. When Powell got signed in their offseason, I viewed him as a punt returner strictly. He was going to compete for that. I was also like, oh, well, isn't this cute? Another former Los Angeles Ram at the Kevin O'Connell. Surprise. So I was much more jazzed to see what Jalen Naylor would do as potentially our number 4 guy, because Naylor, by all accounts, what we heard, he was looking really good in OTAs. He was really looking really good in mini camps, and then he got hurt in training camp, and that carried through to the regular season. And so, but early on, so that made Brandon Powell your number 4 guy, basically. And pretty slow first start to the season. Powell had, I think, through the first 5 games, 1 catch on 1 target. He was strictly a punt returner, getting a few snaps a game on the offense. Then Justin Jefferson goes down, unfortunately. And Brandon Powell gets elevated to your number 3 wide receiver. I thought that might be a problem, but since Brandon Powell, since JJ has gone out, Powell's usage has gone up, which isn't surprising, but he's averaging about 4 targets a game. And he's done pretty well in this 7 games where the Vikings have clawed themselves out of a 1-4 start and are now 6-5. He's got 22 catches, which is only 2 off his career high, which was last year at Los Angeles. 224 yards, which is a career high. These aren't gaudy stats, Dave, obviously, but right. He's kind of given me that Jarius Wright vibe with the Vikings. And if people remember Jarius Wright, here was a guy that never put up huge stats with the Vikings during his time there. Was usually the 3rd or 4th receiving target on the Vikings teams, but he was a guy that when you needed a big catch, he always seemed to come up with it. I think I saw one stat where he had 105 of his receptions were for first downs in his career. And, I probably had like 250 receptions or something like that his whole career. So Jarius Wright was a very dependable guy, made a lot of clutch catches for the Vikings. And Powell
on 3rd down, he was just beyond the sticks and would catch it every time.
Yep. Never short of the sticks, he'd make it. But Powell has come up really big with Justin Jefferson gone. Like he had a really good game against the San Francisco 49ers, a key game, I think 6 catches for 50-some yards. He had a really good game against the Saints 2 weeks ago. Again, 4 catches for 60 yards, that sort of thing. Couple of big first downs. He caught the game-winning touchdown from Josh Dobbs against Atlanta. And, he's shown me in when he's played is that he's got very good burst. He's explosive. He gets the ball, he gets boom, gone with it. He's got good wiggle. He can make the first guy, second guys miss. Not always the best hands, but a bit of a body catcher. But like he gives you something out there, wide receiver. And as a punt returner, I've also been very happy with him because he's sure-handed. He's got those things you want. He's sure-handed. He takes some chances. He's not just going to simply fair catch all the time. And he has that ability, like Marcus Sherrill's had, to make that first guy miss after he catches it. And he's averaging just under 9 yards a return this year, which is pretty good. And I think that hot take, Dave, I think he's very close to breaking a punt return for a TD.
Oh, I know. He's been close quite a few times. And that's right there. He needs to bump his average up. I'm trying to remember where he's at. I think he's only around 8 or 9, which is still 9's average. You got to be above 9, and he's not there yet. He's had a few good ones, but there's been a lot of. So
I think that, but and he's doing all this for just under 1.1 million per year, and he's on a 1-year deal. So what he's given us is as the number 3rd wide receiver, making some key catches as well as being the regular punt returner. Brandon Powell has been a bargain for us. I think a real bargain for us. A nice little under the radar free agent pickup by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, and I think he's been an important, maybe underappreciated player in the Vikings 5-2 surge here, where they've gotten themselves back into the playoff hunt. And when Justin Jefferson comes back, whether that's on Monday night or after the bye, of course his touches are going to go down. But what he's done in the meantime, I think it's been very important for the Vikings, and I wanted to acknowledge that Brandon Powell has been a nice surprise for us, and he's provided us with some what they call yeoman's work, Dave.
And he surprised you being from LA.
Yes, that's right.
What Doc Proto just said in the chat applies. So we don't need to get nasty. We're not here for that. There's no reason for it on either side. Don't care who started what. Don't. Keep private beefs private. All right, that brings us to our next unsung hero. And this one's a surprise.
Yeah, defensively, I got DJ Wonnum as my unsung hero for the Vikings. And when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah signed Marcus Davenport in the offseason, Davenport and he had to do that because they had to trade Zadarius Smith for financial reasons, and Smith wasn't happy with his contract. He wanted a new contract, and he wasn't going to get one. So that was this was a solution. Signed Davenport. He was going to start opposite of the edge of Danielle Hunter, and Wonnum was going to be the backup like he was in 2022. And Wonnum really, as a backup last year, even though he got a significant amount of playing time, not as much as the previous year, but he wasn't able to build on his 2021 breakout season, if you want to call it that, where he had 8 sacks as a backup. He had 4 sacks last year, but he only had a sack and a half, I think, his final 11 games of the season. And sacks aren't everything, of course, Dave. They don't always tell the full story with a pass rusher, but I think in that case it did, because Wonnum really wasn't noticeable the final 11 games of the season when he wasn't getting a lot of sacks. And so this year, the hope was that Marcus Davenport was going to be the guy to get Wonnum was not going to start in capacity.
Yeah, he was the whole 2 games he played.
That's right. Unfortunately, Davenport has played 2 games plus just over a quarter of a third, injured before that and on injured reserve after that. And so Wonnum's snap count had been up high anyway. He played 52% of defensive snaps last year in 2022. This year, even when he was the backup, he's been pretty consistently around the 80% mark. So he's playing a lot. But since Davenport went out, DJ Wonnum has really stepped up to the plate and been very consistent. 5 sacks in 6 games over that stretch where Davenport's been out. And so, he's been doing really well. I think that, the PFF grade for DJ is still pretty mediocre, 61.7 for the year. That makes him 67th out of 103 edge rushers that they've got graded. But I think in this case, this PFF grade, I think, is doing DJ a bit of a disservice, particularly with the way he's played over the past 6-7 games. DJ, Viking fans, his effort has never been questioned, Dave. He's always a hard worker. He plays hard. He's a hustler. That's how he's gotten a lot of his sacks in his career, like just hustling and playing until the whistle. Of course, the criticism for him is that he doesn't have the pass rush, whatever you want to call it, but he doesn't beat his blockers a lot of times. He falls into sacks. He falls into plays. And but I feel like lately what I'm seeing is that on his sacks is that he actually is beating the blocker one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Something we have not seen from DJ.
Yes.
Yeah, like his sacks are not just strictly, nobody blocked me, I got an unabated, journey,
right, or somebody pushed the quarterback into big cleanup type. Yeah. No, he's actually won a few of those battles, and that's good to see. That's progress.
It is. One of the other criticisms in the past I had with him, maybe particularly as a defensive end, and now he's not a defensive end anymore, is that he was could be weak at times as a run defender, didn't set the edge, a strong edge, but I've been seeing him make good plays in the run game too. And I think he's been an important contributor to this Vikings defense that's been playing really well lately, because he's not going to take teams aren't devoting extra blockers to stop him. They're still doing that for Danielle Hunter. But it's really important that if he is getting single blocked all the time, that he is beating that block and creating pressure and creating sacks. And I think that DJ Wonnum is doing that. So If teams only had Danielle Hunter to worry about, and he was the only guy creating a pass rush, I think we'd be in a bit of trouble. But DJ Wonnum is giving us that secondary pass rusher who's getting home on a consistent basis, and I think that's pretty important. And let's look at Davenport is not out for the season. He will come back at some point in time, and when he does come back, and he'll be pretty fresh because he's barely played this year. But I think if you got Davenport, Hunter, and Wonnum, that's a pretty good pass rushing trio you can throw out there, consistently throughout the game. So really like what DJ Wonnum has done for the Vikings, particularly in the past 6 or 7 games. And again, he's doing this. He's only getting paid $2.9 million this year for an edge rusher, getting 6 sacks already, and he's got 6 games to go. To be doing that again is a very good bargain for the Vikings.
Because if he hits double digits, that's big for him.
Yeah,
that's big for most defensive ends. Period.
It sure is, and that's the kind of depth you want from your secondary non-stars. You want them to be making plays, contributing, not being a big zero. And DJ Wonnum has not been a big zero of late, the past 6 or 7 games or more, and kind of sets up an interesting situation for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Dave, because DJ Wonnum is in the last year of his rookie contract. At the beginning of this season, I would have said, "Hey, Wonnum, at the end of this season, leave and don't let the door hit you on the way out," kind of thing. But the way he's playing now, if he can keep up that level of play, maybe consider signing him to an extension, because it's not going to cost a humongous amount of money, and you're probably going to you're not re-signing Davenport. You're going to need somebody in there, and you've got somebody in-house who how he plays, looks like he's getting better, and you can sign him probably for a pretty affordable vet contract. Be interesting to see what happens here.
We'll see. Edge rushers, even just good ones, command a pretty good price, and we'll see how they treat that. I don't know if it's going to be the case. It's going to be interesting. We should see Davenport, or start hearing rumblings about him coming back after the bye. He had the tightrope surgery, if I remember correctly, on that high ankle sprain, and that should be about that time period. He should be coming off IR into that 3-week window. So it'll be great to get him back fully healthy in that last stretch of games. We need him and JJ, obviously. And that would be great to have. And then DJ off the shelf, your 6th guy, or however Flores, matches up for that, whatever particular offense we're playing. I think it's a great option. And we instantly improve with Davenport back and Wonnum playing well. Obviously, Hunter's playing great, 2nd in sacks as of right now, and that's including Thursday's games and yesterday's. But we'll have to see, and I hope they all come back, they're healthy, and they crank up what the Vikings are doing on both sides of the ball. So it should be fun. We shall see. Any last words there on your unsung heroes? Is there any other ones you want to give honorable mention to?
Not me, Dave. It'd be interesting to hear what other people say and think about that. I see that Corey's talking about signing Akeem Hicks. He's been brought up multiple times throughout the season as somebody that the Vikings should sign. Nobody signed him so far, which leads me to believe that the league does not believe that Hicks has anything left. But hey, Hicks at his peak was a hell of a football player. I don't think that those days. I think those days are over. But and I don't think that he's going to get signed. Then there was talk about Shaquille Leonard. The Vikings are collecting information on him. I'd be kind of surprised if they signed Leonard, considering that the Colts didn't think he was of any use to them, and he's had a lot of injury problems the past 12 months or so. So,
yep. Corey, yes, defense got winded. It's dealing with that altitude is always difficult. Always. Purple Haze asking, are you still fighting those fires?
No, we're not. Snow on the ground everywhere now. So purple haze. Not Ed Ingram, unsung hero. Yeah, Alvin. Yeah, I think that's probably a good one too to point out. I have mentioned him a couple of times here in this episode, but Ed Ingram right now is miles ahead of where he was this time last year. And you don't hear, or at least I haven't heard anybody lately saying bench Ed Ingram because he's actually playing pretty good. But
decent.
as far as the forest fires goes, yeah, we're out of that stage right now. Although the fires are still burning below the surface, even though the snow has covered them, and that's going to be an issue to watch in the May, June of next year because those fires may have not died in some cases. They're still alive, and they could reignite in 2024.
Are they burning? All right, subsurface. It's like
they burn so deep that they can't be. They haven't been put out, and that's even the snow and the ice and the cold isn't enough to put them out because they're burned so deep. And some people call them zombie fires, which the firefighters don't like because it gives a negative connotation to fire. Actually, fire is a very important part of the ecosystem. It allows for regrowth and regeneration of the environment in a lot of cases, and it's a kind of a natural part of the natural environment. But when you have the fires like we had this summer, way too much.
One last unsung hero was mentioned, and that was Tino mentioning a Caleb Evans.
Interesting. My feeling is that Evans has been the weak link of the Vikings defense this year. Hasn't made a whole lot of plays. Been picked on a fair bit. Like when teams tend to target a guy to go after in the passing game, it feels to me like they go after Evans before they go after anybody else. And his grades aren't very good, but really Byron Murphy's grades aren't very good either. Like PFF, like they don't like his grades. They got Mekhi Blackmon as the highest rated cornerback that we have. Mm-hmm. But I think that like the Atlanta game that Evans played, I think that was he played the Saints game. Did he? He got hurt in the Saints game. He played well there. I felt, particularly in run support. I'm still optimistic about Evans. I think that, he's 6'2", he's got talent. He just needs to I think,
grow.
Yeah, refine and get, I think, a little bit. I think he's a bit content or reluctant to make plays on the ball, I think that's where his game needs to step up and go to the next level and make him a better cornerback, a better player.
Cool, but thanks for the contribution.
Yes, all right. Thank you.
On to theme 3. Vikings versus the Bears. Part 2. The sweep.
Would love it.
Well, you ain't the only one. All right. As normal, we start out with the slide show. Starting with injury reports. These are taken off of yesterday's. Vikings have Caleb Evans, TJ Hawkinson, and Justin Jefferson on it. All limited practices. Nobody on the DMPs, which is good. The Bears have offensive guard Larry Borum, linebacker Noah Sewell, both DNPs. I think it was Borum, if I remember correctly, I was going to mark it, was out for an illness, so he may be back. Illness this time of year can be anything from the flu to whatever sort of crud that knocks you out. And then running back Deontay Foreman, it was a limited participant. Now, like I said, these came off yesterday's reports, and yesterday was a walkthrough for both teams. So take it with a grain of salt. We'll see what we see come Monday night. Question is, will we see JJ? We'll get to that, though. As normal, we compare the quarterbacks. Now, this was an interesting one. PFF had both Joshua Dobbs and Justin Fields tied in their power rankings at 18. It's the first time I think I've seen ever a tie for quarterbacks.
Dobbs, he's moving up.
Yes, Dobbs did move up another one. He is moving up. Now, we get to the more detailed QB stats, and they're there. Everybody can read them. Dobbs has improved on just every last one of those, except for, I think his under pressure went down by a tenth of a point. But everything else, he's improved on. Now, how does he compare to Justin? You can see there's a lot of green dots on Justin's side. But when you get to DVOA, oh boy, they have a completely different look. They much prefer Joshua Dobbs over Justin Fields. And that to me is shocking. And that's looking at their quarterback grades. That's not looking at the Bears grades, the Bears offense grades. That's the quarterbacks. And they have a huge disparity there. When you get to Elias, your box score stats, you can see that Dobbs has the better QBR than Fields, but Fields has got him on rating and completion percentage. And completion percentage, actually, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Dobbs has the better completion percentage. So they, like I said, PFF's got them the same quarterback, same power ranking of 1.0 each, same rating rank of 18. The same guy, basically stats wise. So we'll see. T-Bass, you want a full dance or nothing? Ooh, interesting thought. When we get to offense versus defense, PFF has us as the 21st offense, bumped up just a little bit, and the Bears is the 27th ranked defense. When we get to DVOA, we dropped just one. Went from 16th to 17th overall, 12th in pass, and 28th in run. And what dropped us on that one? It was the run for this last week. Elias, we stayed steady at 10th in yards, 4th in passing, 27th in rushing, 11th in points, 20. We've taken 25 sacks total. The offense has, combination of all three quarterbacks. And we are 29th in turnovers with 20, a -6 differential. That went the more negative direction after last week. And there's an interesting deal. I'm sure everybody's heard it all week. If the Vikings kept the turnovers no greater or no less than -2 per game, they've won all the games this season. It's when they hit that -3 mark, that third turnover, is that when we've lost games. And I think it was out of something silly like, if you took that stat, the difference between -2 and -3, -2 is something like O'Connell's undefeated. -3, he's lost most of those. But you could never win turning the ball over. So it's got to be focused on. Bears
and they were
defense.
talking about Sunday night game, the Sunday night telecast day. They rolled out a stat that on the road, if you go 0-3 in the turnover margin, you're like 5 and 190.
Mm-hmm.
You just never win.
It doesn't work.
And the Vikings didn't.
Yeah. Bears defense, when it comes to DVOA, they rank 25th. They're not that good. Pass, they're 27th. They're 11th against the run, however. 11th is respectable. Getting back to Alexander Mattison and the young Ty Chandler, it's going to be an interesting night to see how those guys in that running game develops. Elias Sports has them 15th overall on defense, middle of the pack, 26 against the pass, which is where we want to attack. They have them second against the run. Hard team to run on. And they're 29th giving up points, which is always a good thing. We want to play teams that like to give up a lot of points, and Chicago is one of those. They rank 32nd in sacks. They only have gotten 15 so far this season. That's barely over one a game. That is not good whatsoever. Josh Dobbs will like that. Takeaways, they rank 22nd, and they have only gotten 13. We have the Vikings are favored in this one by 3 points, and the over-under is 43. Flipping the card, Vikings defense dropped just a bit. I think it was 1 point down to 12th. They dropped, and they dropped just a bit in DVOA down to 9th. They're 9th passing, 9th running, so they're 9th. There's
I'll take it.
Elias Sports have them moving up, though, moved up to 12th. And 16th in passing, 8th against the rush. That's Harrison Phillips doing his thing. And they're 14th in points. They are 14th with sacks. They've had 29 sacks. And they're ranked 20th with takeaways, having 14. The Bears' offense ranks 20th. Now, that's a combination of all the quarterbacks that they've played so far this season. Overall, DVOA is 24th. Pass is 23rd. That's their weak spot. Their run game is ranked 9th by DVOA. It is decent. Yards, they're 20th. Passing, they're 25th. Rushing, they're 4th in the conventional stats. Points, they're 18th. So, not much worse than us, but we're both middle of the package. I would like to get our points up. I'd like to see another 30-plus point game to help with that stat. They have taken 32 sacks. And if you remember the other slide, they'd only gotten 15, so they're over doubling the amount of sacks they're taking, that their quarterbacks are taking versus the ones that they're getting for themselves. Giveaways, they rank 25th with 19, and they are also at a -6 differential. And that's your O versus Ds of both teams. That leads us to one last slide, special teams. The bane in everybody's backside, our kickers. All right, Vikings actually improved because Joseph hit all his kicks last week. We're now up to 30th. The Bears are not that good either. They're overall 24th. When you break it down for your field goal and extra points, your kicker stat, the Bears are a little bit better, actually quite a bit better. Then you get kickoff returns. Bears are better. But then it gets to punting. Their punting game in all realms, whether it be the punts or punt returns or kick returns, sucks. We are better than they are, and we're not good. And like I said, on this slide, 0 is average. If you're minus that, you're below average. Plus, you're above. And the maximum plus I think I've ever seen is like 7.0. So that's where it sits. We have toss-up on special teams come Monday night. But, it's indoors in Minneapolis, which means their kicker will not miss a field goal. It just doesn't happen.
Santos doesn't miss many of them anyway.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, that brings us to, does this man play?
I don't think he will, Dave. I guess a bit of a question, I guess, is that the Vikings have been, Justin Jefferson, Kevin O'Connell have been very consistent lately about saying Justin will only play when he's 100% healthy. But with the Vikings losing, unfortunately, missed opportunity with the Broncos game and losing that one because we were the better team. We led in almost every statistical category except turnovers. And that would have really given us a nice breathing room. Going 7-4 versus 6-5 gets you a lot of breathing room, more breathing room for the wild card position. And we didn't get it done. And you wonder if that'll play into the decisions. Hey, we need JJ now. We need him to add that extra element to the offense now, as opposed to waiting. And if we'd won, if we beat Denver and we were going into this game 7-4, I guarantee you, I don't think Jefferson plays. They wait. But now I think that's a little bit in question. I still don't expect to see him, though. And I kind of wonder, Dave, even if he did play, what is his impact going to be? Because, hey, with Kirk Cousins, the connection. They've been playing for almost 3+ years. They know each other inside out. But Dobbs is never. I don't know, how much has he thrown to Justin Jefferson? Has he thrown to him at all? I think it's going to take a while for them to, even when Justin Jefferson gets back, it's going to take a while for them to establish the connection, and maybe they'll never reach it that Cousins and Justin Jefferson had, which means JJ's impact on the game might not be quite what we've become accustomed to.
But JJ has the talent to make some of Kirk's off-target throws matter, and he will have the same talent to make some of Dobbs' throws that are, his room for, I guess it's like room for forgiveness.
Sure. I just wonder, whereas Kirk would target Justin Jefferson 15 times a game, is Dobbs going to do that?
Right.
That amount of volume.
And there's no way that Kirk knows that if Kirk's in trouble and he's struggling, he knows exactly where JJ's going to be. They're on the same wavelength. JJ and Dobbs are not there yet. Not even close. No. The closest one that Dobbs has sort of gotten with right so far is TJ Hawkinson. And that's it. He's not with Mattison. We want him to get more to Mattison, but he's not. It's Hawkinson. So
that's it'd be nice to see Justin Jefferson, but I think particularly the first game that Jefferson is back, whether it's Monday night against the Bears or against the Raiders in 2 weeks' time, I don't know if we're going to see the numbers and see the impact we'd like to see between the Dobbs and Jefferson combination. So I don't know if Jefferson's sitting out Monday night if that ends up happening, and I think that's what's going to be the case. If that's going to be as big of a detriment to the Vikings as maybe we think it would be. I think the one thing to keep in mind is what was that? I missed that. So
he said he saw the interview with JJ, and Dobbs has been thrown to him in practice. And I know I saw comments by JJ this week that he loves the fact that if things go off schedule, he loves that Dobbs can extend the play, and he's very much looking forward to that.
Yeah. I think the one thing to Corey, I don't think I've reached a conclusion about Addison. Looking up, actually, we're going to talk about that a little bit because I think their connection has also been impacted a bit. But I think that in this game, Bears are 3-8, and they started off the year horribly. They went 0-3. They lost those 3 games by no less than 10 points. It was a 2-score game in each case, and they lost by 31 to the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Bears in the first 3 games are not the Bears that right now. They have not been. They played much better since that rough start, and I think it would be a mistake to feel that the Vikings are going to roll over the Bears even at home on Monday night, because the Bears team I've been watching lately, they got their issues. They're not a good team, but they're not as brutal as they looked against in the first 3 games. And and if you remember, in our first game against the Bears outgained us. They were better on third down than us. And so if not for the scoop and score by Jordan Hicks, we probably would have lost that game. And that was the first game without Justin Jefferson. But I don't think that overconfidence is going to be an issue for the Vikings in this one, because there are a few things that the Bears do well, and one of them is stopping the run. You've seen the information there. Up until the Detroit got 115, ran for 115 yards on them the last game, but up until that point, the Bears hadn't given up 100 yards to anybody combined since the third game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So they have consistently, doesn't matter who their competition has been, they consistently been tough to run against. And I don't think that I'm not confident, even though we had our best running game of the year against the Broncos, who are a horrible run blocking team, but our defense have a horrible run defense. But I'm not very confident that an Alexander Mattison led rushing attack is going to be able to be very successful against the Bears. So again, this kind of comes down to Josh Dobbs and him being our running game, our best runner, and also winning with using his legs and his arm to help our offense get where we need to be and beat the Bears. You talked about the Bears. They don't have a great pass rush. They're basically they don't like to blitz a whole lot, certainly not as much as the Vikings, but then who does? They're going to rely on they're going to rely on 4 or 5 guys to try to get pressure. It's not going to really work, although they got Montez Sweat now, and he helps a little bit more. He's another guy but I'm not worried about O'Neal and Darisaw handling Sweat and Yannick Ngakoue on the edge. But again, Dobbs is the guy that I'm still trying to figure out. I've been very pleasantly surprised with especially how he's passed the ball since he's been a Viking. I wasn't expecting him to be as effective throwing the ball as he has, but what really is his legs, Dave. Matt Eberflus has been, in his 2 years as a head coach, has been game planning against immobile Kirk Cousins. Defending a quarterback with the run has not been something he's had to worry about in his 2 years. That's not the case with Josh Dobbs, who can extend plays with his legs, or he can take off and scramble. And I think that's a very important aspect of the Vikings offense now. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Chicago defense handles that. But because I think that Dobbs right now is almost our best runner. And if he can continue to have success running the ball, that just adds a dimension to this offense that we've never had. And it really makes it tough for the defense to handle that. You've also seen how I think Kevin O'Connell is subtly changing our offense a bit and adding wrinkles to it that really marry what Dobbs does well. You're seeing, we've ran 2 wildcat plays in the past 2 games, and they've been led to a walk-in touchdown and a very successful run by Alexander Mattison in the red zone. That's on tape now for the Bears to worry about. You see where Dobbs is taking, like, being an option. The RPO stuff is a part of our offense now. Not a huge part, but he's doing it. You're seeing him, go wide and like pitching out to the running back, usually Ty Chandler. It looks like the Oklahoma Sooners, Nebraska Cornhuskers from the 80s and 90s. That is on tape now. And even the Hawkinson under center, even though the play did not turn out the way we liked, those kind of trickery type things, that is on tape now. So we've got a little bit new wrinkles in our offense now that take advantage of the fact that Josh Dobbs is a mobile quarterback who's a threat to run at any time. I think that's important for the Vikings offense, and I want to see that Kevin O'Connell to continue to try to make it maximize what he's got with Josh Dobbs and his ability to run and work that into the offense. Not a major part of it, but something that they've got to worry about. Passing wise, really, I want to see, you got the photo of Jordan Addison. He's been pretty quiet in the 3 games since Dobbs has taken over. Dobbs loves throwing to TJ Hawkinson. That's understandable. But Jordan Addison with JJ, especially if JJ's out, Jordan Addison is the guy who can take the top off a defense. The explosive big plays, that the 50-yarder that wipes for a touchdown that allows us to not grind a drive and have to score in a long-winded type drive. Jordan Addison is the only guy on the offense right now, really, on the wideouts who can do that. And he's been quiet, so I feel it's really important in Monday night's game.
A lot of that is because he's getting a lot more attention.
True. He had to face Paulson Adebo from the Saints a couple of games ago, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Patrick Surtain was on him pretty much all the time against Denver. Again, one of the top cornerbacks. Now, against Chicago, probably Jalen Johnson, another very good cornerback, is going to be shadowing Jordan Addison. So Addison's going to have to win those one-on-one battles, but I think we have to get him involved and try to open up some of the explosiveness that he provides for this offense so that we don't have to depend on 12, 13 play drives to score, and get Jordan back into the groove of where he was, before the last 3 games where he was catching a touchdown pretty much every game, right? We need to unlock that big play potential from him against the Bears. And it's going to be tough because Jalen Johnson's a good corner. You got Kyler Gordon, who's a pretty good corner, and the rookie Tyreek Stevenson's playing a lot now, and he's been getting better. So it ain't easy on the back end with the Bears. So pretty important there. And I think defensively for the Vikings, defense is playing really, really well. Brian Flores has got the boys rocking. The Bears, though, they've got a really good rushing attack. You 4th in the league, like by the Elias stats. No superstars back there, but Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert, and Rashawn Johnson, they have been pretty effective all year in splitting up the carries. And against the Vikings, they were very effective. And the Vikings running game in that game, remember, we only rushed for 46 yards combined that whole game. They ran for, I think, over 150 or more. So we didn't defend the run all the well in that game. Didn't end up hurting us, but the Vikings defense has been much stouter, I feel, defending the run lately with Brian Flores. And I feel that, if they can keep the Bears from running the ball effectively, that forces the Bears to depend on Justin Fields to win with his arm. And I don't think that is a winning proposition for the Bears. Fields played really well coming back last week for the most part against the Lions. And one thing that we're really going to have to, I think, focus on is that the Lions really were confused. Like the Bears really incorporated Fields' mobility in the first couple of drives. The run pass option, the Lions defense was really confused as to whether the running back was getting the ball or was Fields getting the ball. And most of the time they made the wrong decision and didn't take Fields, and he took off and hurt them big time with the running plays. So the Vikings are going to have to be really lock their eyes onto that RPO and make sure they don't commit until they know exactly who has got the ball. Because if they don't, Fields is going to tuck it out of the running back's stomach, and he's going to take off.
The way to defeat that is have your defensive end, that's who focuses on Fields, and he hits him every time he comes. Whether he's got the ball or not, hit him.
Yeah.
He'll eventually get to the point where they'll dish off the ball long before it gets to the defensive end, and you don't have to worry. That's how that system is beat. We played it back in the 70s and 80s with the T and the wishbone and everything else, and the veer.
Yep.
Anytime you have an option, the man who's responsible for the option is the quarterback. All you got to do is make that quarterback make a faster decision, i.e., I don't want to get hit, so here, hand off the ball or, flip the ball out or do whatever he's required to do. That's how you defeat it. And hopefully the man on the screen over there knows that. But the NFL has been so far long from that sort of offense. Now it's come back in recent years with the RPO. But players have to relearn that. If they've never played that, it's very difficult to play if it's your first time seeing an option type of system. It's really hard because you go where you think the ball is. And if the quarterback's good, he's holding that ball in that running back's stomach as long as possible. And you want to tackle that guy, and then you tackle him, and he gets up and he laughs because the ball, there it goes. It's heading towards the edge. It turned the edge, and it just gained 15 yards. And you look like a fool. But that's how you defeat that. And you're right. If he has, hopefully, the edges, Hunter, Wonnum, we'll keep an eye on that. Keep the quote contain. And if they're coming to that side, pop that quarterback every single time. Just get in his face. You don't have to hurt him. Just get in his face. I'm here. Right? And that'll change his mind. That'll change their thinking. Because they don't like when big guys hit them.
No. One thing about Fields is, though, even though he played pretty well against Detroit, is one thing you've seen from him, I think, throughout his time with Chicago, is that, again, consistently, he's not, you want him to try to beat you with his arm. And because he doesn't always he misses some easy throws by not seeing the hot reads and not making the right reads. That forces him to hold on to the ball way too long, and then he takes sacks or has to or the pocket collapses on him and he ends up running around and having to throw the ball away when maybe he didn't have to if he made the right decision, get into a hot read. He doesn't do that often enough. He can be inaccurate at times on some throws that maybe should be made. Hugely athletic, great athlete, can make some great plays and off schedule plays and off schedule throws. But I think if the Bears have to depend on him to consistently convert first downs with his arm, he's not going to be able to do that over and over and over throughout the game enough for the Bears to score enough points to beat the Vikings, I think. And interesting because in the first game against Flores, even though he didn't play, he got taken out, had to leave with the dislocated thumb midway through the second quarter, I think, after Hunter sacked him. So then we got Tyson Bagent. But Flores in that game did blitz a fair amount. But what we've seen, even though we're still blitzing a lot, but the blitzing under Flores has slowly, as the season gone on, it's reduced a bit. It was well over 50%. Now we're at 47.7%. Still tops in the league, but less. And what you saw against Atlanta and even against Denver was that Flores is really messing with minds like he always does, but he's putting 8 or 9 guys on the line of scrimmage, but often dropping back, only rushing 3. And it's been really effective. They're actually still getting good pressure on the quarterback, just rushing 3. And I think that you may see that a lot against Fields in this game, because if you got a mobile quarterback, Dave, what's the way to stop that? Well, you've got drop guys back in pressure with their eyes on the quarterback. You've got more guys who can tackle him if he takes off, and more eyes on him. So, to watch for that, as opposed to sending the house. And if he escapes off the edge or cuts through the gap where you don't have a pass rusher, then he's got 20, 30 yards down the field and it's a big gain. So I think we're going to see what looks like a lot of opportunities to blitz, but really Flores is probably going to drop back and try to rush 3 and see if he can get away with that a lot of the time.
Probably. We'll find out. It'll be fun Monday night. It'll be a late game, obviously Monday night. It'll be a later live at the 2-minute warning. And we encourage everybody to join us there. But prior to the game, we're going to have the Real Forno show at 6 o'clock. It's normal time. And it will be our pregame show. The official, pregame warm-up, last-minute notifications, who's on the inactive list, et cetera, et cetera. So we encourage everybody to join us there. Have you got any last projections on this game? Are you picking a winner?
Now that the Broncos ruined my streak, I can start picking how I feel. I feel like the Vikings. This is a game that worries me, but all Vikings game worries me because that's just the way it goes. But I do feel that the Vikings are going to win this game. One stat to throw out there, though, Dave, and it doesn't mean anything, is that the Bears are currently on an 0-12 streak against the NFC North. They haven't beaten an NFC North team since 2 years ago when they beat the Lions. That's a long time to not beat an NFC North team. And with the way the Vikings been turning the ball over, they seem like a team that, even playing at home, they're the kind of team that the Bears
could sneak up. Yeah. Well, they almost snuck up on the Kittens, so that's
the kind of team and the recipe with the turnover, multiple turnovers in a game that the Vikings have been doing multiple times this year. That's the recipe for actually beating the Bears. So, or not beating the Bears, but losing to the Bears. Right. And I do worry.
And the recipe to win is don't drop the rock.
That's right. Yes.
I like that, Jonathan.
Just a big opportunity. With a few things happened in Turkey Day that helped the Vikings, both in keeping pace with the division and winning the division, and also just your wild card position. Detroit lost, so if we win this game, we'll only be we'll be only a game and a half out of first place with 2 games to play against Detroit. That's a positive. And then the other thing is that Seattle lost, so they're 6-6, which helps us in the wild card thing again. But you got to beat the Bears, and I don't think it's going to be easy. When is it ever easy for a Kevin O'Connell team? It seems to come down to the very last drive, very last play every game. I'd love to see us boat race them. I don't see it, but I do think that we win. Unless the great equalizer comes up, and that is we turn the ball over multiple times, and like we did against the Broncos.
Mm-hmm. I heard an interesting stat. The last time we won by 17 or more was under Zimmer.
Yeah, that was against the we played the Chargers in LA. I think that was the last time. That was 2019. That's the last time we won by 17 or more.
Yep. Hey, I would love to see that this weekend. I'd love to see it Monday.
And we were on that pace against the Saints in the first half, and then we took our foot off the gas, and ended up being a nail biter again.
So it's something I think they have to learn. I think it's something O'Connell has to learn. I think the team has to learn. It's okay to run up the score on people. It's okay to win big. It feels good. It feels actually better. Let's do it. They need to learn that. They need to learn that now, hey, we've got a 1-point lead, so let's sit back and defend it until the end of the game. No, stop that. Just go for it. Pour on the points like you're pouring on coal. Just keep it rolling.
And how about
I like that cat.
When the Bears played Detroit, they marched 75 yards on their first drive of the game. They got the kickoff, 75 yards for a touchdown. They're up 7-0. And then the first drive by Detroit, they get an interception on the Lions. That is the start we cannot have Monday night. Right. The Vikings have to take the game by the bull by the horns right away in their first drive, score points, preferably a touchdown, and on the Bears' first drive, get a 3-and-out or a 6-and-out with no points. And because you don't want to give the Bears belief that they can win the game. And that you want to create doubt, seeds of doubt in their minds right from the get-go that, we're in for a rough one here tonight. The Vikings got our number. You don't do that when you allow them to start, the other team to start fast, score points on you. And that is something we have not done very well this year. We have not done well scoring on our first drive. We've been
unlike last
pretty
year. Yes. No. Hey, it's this weekend started out on Thursday with the Lions losing, which helps us. And yes, the Lions lost. I'm not going to say the other team won. It still bothers me a little bit. But anyways, the Lions lost. That helps us. And then we get to close out this NFC North weekend because that was a division matchup with our division matchup with the Bears. And it should be a fun Monday to see how that goes. But I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and that their weekend has been fantastic so far. That goes for you as well. Darren, any last words?
No, I have nothing at all. Just thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Really appreciate your patronage.
Yes, absolutely.
Business world.
Mm-hmm. Good term. With that, what do we say?
We say, SKOL Vikings and beat the teddy bears.
SKOL Vikings, let's win this game. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!